The Big Screen by David Thomson. I have now finished this truly mammoth book. It doesn't look it, but the pages are quite thin, and this book is over, where's the number, 500 pages, and it has taken me a while to get through it, and what a read, I tell you. This quote here describes it as probably the best overview of the cinema ever written, and my God, I haven't read many overviews, but they'd be hard-pressed to compete with this, because this really has got everything crammed into it. Right from before the very beginning, right up to the present day. And I think the key thing to really say about this book is it's not your typical film critic, film professor operating in the secluded little film area of academia. It extends far beyond that, and this is a book that doesn't just look at the aesthetics, the art. It looks at the logistics, the numbers, the business, the reality behind it all, and how the films have affected our lives, and how our mass immersion and reliance on screen culture, I guess you'd call it now, is having a huge impact on our lives. In fact, he actually says in the book, this book is less about a history of the movies and more about an exploration, a consideration, a criticism of our relationship to audio-visual media and our immersion into screens. And this is very much why I wanted to read this book. It's been on my agenda for a while now, and I kept putting it off, and eventually I just said, if I don't start reading it now, I never will. So I did, and it's been hugely expanding in terms of my thinking, because this book very much deals with the same area that my dissertation did, ways of being the spectator and spectacle, and in many ways it actually ties into it quite strongly and picks up on some areas I couldn't even cover. As I've already said, our huge reliance on different types of screens, and big, small, humongous, and it's dealing with an area that is not really being that widely considered. This book also I want to read because it deals with the same areas and looks at them, and as I've been trying to do in essentially the sequel project to my dissertation, Ways to Interface. And so I mean, in terms of if you want a book that gives you an overview and the history and a consideration of what film studies is, what the movies are, the aesthetics behind them, the practical logistics behind making them, and a book that really doesn't give you bullshit, it gives you the solid facts, the reality behind this thing we've come to call film culture, movies, screen culture, then this is the book I'd recommend. Up to date, relevant, completely now. This is the best introduction you can give yourself to the field, I would say. My only criticism of it is I felt that he could have dealt a bit more with contemporary films and cinema. Tends to jump over that quite a bit, which is a bit of a letdown, but I wouldn't be surprised that if in a couple of years he didn't publish an updated version. And certainly you could also argue that this is one of the strengths of the book, because he does leave it open, and it is very encouraging to people like me and other film critics, film theorists or upcoming film theorists who really want to get their teeth into something that's not really being talked about. I mean, he has an elegant writing style. I mean, it really is. Even if you're not interested in what he's talking about, his writing style is poetic. You can enjoy it purely because of that. And there's lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff in here. There's lots of food for thought. It's very encouraging in terms of its writing style, the ideas raised, and it's definitely a good read. But it's less. There's a theme that runs throughout the book, of one of which, let me find the contents page. That there's this theme of dread and desire, which Thomson says runs throughout our relationship with film culture and screens, and in many ways, this is actually quite a depressing book because it doesn't end on a hopeful note. It builds towards the idea that while we get a huge sense of desire from the movies, from our relationship with screens, there's also, if we really examine it and dissect it as he is doing in this book and look deeply into what it is doing to our lives, how it's changing our lives, and the potential damage it could do from here on out. He says there's also a great sense of dread in our relationship to films and screens. So, yeah, I would highly recommend this book to all film students, aspiring filmmakers, and just general people who had a general interest in the films. I mean, it is a challenging read because it is such a long book, and some that you really do have to invest your attention into it at some points because he really is throwing a lot of ideas at you. I mean, every time I'd read a section from the book, I'd come away and I just couldn't think about anything else. My head was just too occupied thinking about all the stuff he'd written about. And certainly some of the chapters, there's one, I mean, you wouldn't even call it a chapter, it's more its own, in a sense, its own self-contained essay. I mean, if you look at the contents page, you have all the initial chapters dealing with classic Hollywood, and then these three, if you look at the page numbering, 241 to 347, 347 to 421, those are big sections, and they took a while to get through. There's a lot in them, a lot. And then Dread and Desire, this one is less conclusive, this one's more open. So yeah, great writing style, fantastic ideas, dealing with some stuff that really does need to be dealt more with in the film academia area, probably also in the filmmaking area as well. But the big screen, story of the movies and what they did to us, if you want to start, this is a good place to start. And I will definitely be referencing this book a lot in the future.